Okay, welcome. In this lesson we're going to look at muting, a really important part of your guitar strumming technique and your rhythm playing generally. Muting can be sometimes quite obvious in a song, and it can be obvious in different ways. It can also be subtle and not so obvious, but still a really important part of giving you the complexity and texture of a rhythm. So what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to look at a couple of pieces of music, and that's going to help us learn a couple of sequences, a couple of strumming patterns, and within those strumming patterns we're going to look at two different muting techniques that are going to be very useful for enriching your rhythm playing. So let's jump in. Okay, so the first technique we're going to look at is the basic muting, or sometimes known as finger muting, and that's because we just use the fingers of the fretting hand to mute the strings. And there's nothing really fancy about this, just lay the fingers across all of the strings, not pressing down so there's no contact with the fretboard, you're just laying them across and you just strum completely as normally. And you get that kind of sound, and you are doing finger muting. Well done. This can be incorporated with chords, so let's look at how it might look and sound over, say, an A minor and a C with a simple pattern of. So that's down, down, and then the muting is down, up, down, up. So you should try that, and that should hopefully not be too tricky. A couple of things to notice. The A minor, because it's not naturally covering all of the strings as a chord shape, there's actually quite a bit of movement when I want to mute it. If you look, I'm doing a totally different chord shape almost. It's not really a chord shape, it's just covering. Whereas other chords, they don't require so much of a movement. So in the C, for example, still some movement, but not as much. So that's the idea. We're going to look at it in the context of some bar chords, because actually this technique really opens up when you can do bar chords, because of the nature of the chord shape, you're already covering all of the strings, and so rather than having to move into a different position to get the muting sound, you actually just release the chord shape while keeping your fingers in the same place. So by that, if I demonstrate on a G minor bar chord, press it down, but then I just let go of my fingers. Can you even see the difference? Very little movement required, but we get. So with that in mind, let's look at the sequence and the little tune that we're going to learn to practice finger muting. It's going to be over a G minor chord to a C minor chord rooted on the A string. Then we're going to go for an E flat 7, dominant 7, which is kind of like an E major, but with the middle of the three fingers removed. So, and basically the frets I'm playing for this are 6, 8, 6, 8, 6 from the A string. And then if we slide down to a D major 7, which is kind of like a dominant 7, but with the middle finger coming down, you kind of get a little triangle shape. And again, the frets for this are 5, 7, 6, 7, 5. So the sequence: G minor, C minor, E flat, dominant 7, D major 7. And the strumming pattern is going to be down, down, and then the muting is going to be down, up, down, up. Then we're going to have another 2 downs, and then we're going to have another 2 mutes, down strums, kind of sharp and staccato. So let's put it together. Down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 down. And again. notice here, just a really slight movement to change from strum to mute. Look here, strum, mute. No difference in the strumming hand, just here. Let me play this across the chord sequence for you and see how you like it. Also, what I'm going to do sometimes, if I remember, is on that final mute where I do a down down, maybe sometimes I will do a repeat of the earlier muting pattern, which was down up, just to give us a bit of flexibility and interest. Let's see. Okay, and the second muting technique we're going to look at is called palm muting. And what we do is we actually mute the strings down here by the bridge of the guitar, not with the palm, so it's not like this, but it's with the sort of side of the hand, this part here. So we're kind of muting it like this, and I guess it feels like you kind of coming down to strum, the side of the hand comes into contact with the strings first, and then you have this kind of slight movement of the wrist to execute the strum. So you can see I'm not doing anything with this hand to mute the strings here, it's all coming from here. And of course, if one of the strings creeps out when you do it, maybe don't worry too much, just extend the palm. You really need quite a solid placement of the side palm on the strings. Need a bridge, palm first, followed by the plectrum, following through. Try to get it as just one movement rather than a separate on and then strum. We really want just one smooth motion. The palm is on, palm on, strumming, palm on, strumming, almost as one movement. Maybe a good way of practicing this, other than doing what I just did, which is just strumming, with a little bit of a flick at the wrist as the palm, the side of the palm comes into contact with the strings. You could also try maybe with a G major chord. Let's just do like so notice here that unlike the previous muting technique where we were placing on and then kind of lifting off a little bit, that's not happening here. The fretting is staying there all the time. I don't need to do anything with this other than hold the G, but I recommend that's how you start, just to get a feel for that, and then maybe try this sequence that we're going to look at now, which is maybe not, in terms of the chords it's using, it's not as complex as the previous one, but in terms of the rhythm it can be a little bit challenging, so you want to be comfortable with the palm mute before focusing on this next sequence, otherwise it might be a bit frustrating. So we're just going to use an E major and an A major chord, and we're going to do which is down, mute, down, up, mute, up, down, mute, down, up, mute, up. Join in. So maybe that's tricky because the changing of the chord is kind of quick after the up strum, and then adding in the palm mute, there's a lot going on there, but it's definitely manageable. A couple of familiar chords, you can do it. So thanks for watching, and see you next week.